I need to tell someone what I did, and I know exactly how this sounds. Everyone who knows about this, my friends, my sister, even the barista at the coffee shop I stopped going to because I couldn't stand the pitying looks. They all think they understand what happened. They think I'm the victim here, that I pushed my boyfriend to be more spontaneous, and he took it too far with someone else. But that's not the whole truth. Not even close. And the part that makes me look the worst, I'm not even sure I regret what I did to set everything in motion. My name is Claire, and 6 months ago, I was in a relationship with a man named Daniel. We'd been together for 3 years, living together for 1. And to anyone looking from the outside, we were solid, comfortable. The kind of couple that finishes each other's sentences at dinner parties and has a system for loading the dishwasher. But comfort isn't passion, is it? And that's what I kept telling myself every time I felt that restless feeling crawling under my skin. The thing is, I've always been adventurous. I backpacked through Southeast Asia alone when I was 22. I've tried skydiving, scuba diving, ice climbing. I once spent a weekend learning trapeze because I saw a flyer and thought, why not? That's who I am. Or who I was before Daniel. Daniel was different. Steady. Reliable. He had a favorite restaurant where he ordered the same thing every time. He rewatched the same TV shows because he didn't like the risk of starting something new that might disappoint him. Our vacations were always to the same beach rental his family had been going to since he was 7. And for the first 2 years, I told myself this was good for me, that I needed grounding, that adventure and stability could coexist. But they couldn't. Not the way we were doing it. It started small, my frustration. Little comments here and there. Why don't we try that new Thai place? Maybe we could go hiking this weekend instead of watching Netflix. He'd agree sometimes, but with this resigned energy that made me feel like I was dragging him along. Like I was the demanding girlfriend who couldn't just be happy with what we had. Then one night, about 8 months ago, we were at his friend Marcus's birthday party. Marcus had just gotten back from 3 months in South America, and he was showing everyone these incredible photos. Paragliding over Rio, scuba diving with sea turtles, dancing at street festivals. And Daniel laughed and said, "Man, I could never do that. Way too much chaos for me. I like my routine." Everyone laughed with him, like it was charming, like being boring was a personality trait to be proud of. I didn't laugh. I went to the bathroom and stayed there for 10 minutes, staring at myself in the mirror, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Was this my life now? Was I going to become one of those people who talked about adventures they used to have, past tense, while living in a beige present? That night, after we got home, I started the conversation that would eventually destroy everything. Though I didn't know it then. I thought I was being helpful. Do you ever want to just do something unexpected? I asked him as we were getting ready for bed. He looked confused. Like what? I don't know. Anything. Book a last-minute flight, somewhere. Try something you've never done. Just be more spontaneous. We're spontaneous, he said, and he genuinely believed it. Remember when we got ice cream at 11 p.m. last Tuesday? I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "That's not spontaneous, Daniel. That's just dessert at a slightly unusual time." He got defensive then, asked me if I was unhappy. And I should have been honest. I should have said, yes, I'm restless. I'm feeling trapped. I need more than this. But I didn't want to be the bad guy. I didn't want to be the girlfriend who couldn't appreciate a good man just because he wasn't exciting enough. So I lied. I'm happy. I just think you could be more adventurous. That's all. What I didn't say, and here's where the story gets complicated, was that I'd already been thinking about leaving. Not seriously. Not with any plans, but the thought had been there, floating around in the back of my mind for months. And I'd been too comfortable, too cowardly to do anything about it. It's easier to stay in a relationship that's fine than to blow up your whole life for something as intangible as feeling alive, right? But here's what I've never told anyone. Part of me, some small, terrible part of me, wanted him to mess up. To give me a reason to leave that wasn't just my own restlessness. It started small, my frustration. Little comments here and there. Why don't we try that new Thai place? Maybe we could go hiking this weekend. Or try something you've never done, just because you wasn't exciting enough. Because if he did something wrong, I could be the victim instead of the villain. The conversations kept happening. At least once a week, I'd make some comment about his lack of adventure. Sometimes subtle, sometimes not. Your coworker went to Morocco last month, and you won't even try the Moroccan restaurant downtown. We've been dating for 3 years, and you've never surprised me with anything. I feel like I don't even know who you are, outside of your routine. He started trying. God, he really tried. He planned a surprise weekend trip to a cabin upstate. He signed us up for a cooking class. He even suggested we go rock climbing. But it all felt performative, like he was checking boxes on a list titled Things Adventurous People Do, instead of actually wanting any of it. And I told him so. I can't win with you, he said after I criticized the cabin trip for being too planned out. You want me to be spontaneous, but then when I plan something, you say it's not spontaneous enough. What do you actually want, Claire? I wanted to feel something. Anything. The spark that had been there in the beginning, before everything became so predictable. But I couldn't say that, because it would mean admitting that maybe the problem wasn't him. Maybe it was me. I just want you to be more adventurous, I repeated. Like a broken record. Like if I said it enough times, he'd magically transform into someone else. Things got worse after that. I started going out more without him, Drinks with coworkers, weekend trips with friends, a solo hiking expedition that I knew would bother him. And every time he asked to come along, I'd make some excuse about needing space or independence or time with my friends. The truth? I didn't want him there. He'd make everything feel safe and boring, and I was chasing the feeling of possibility. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Daniel made a change. It was subtle at first. He started going to the gym more, bought some new clothes, got a different haircut. I noticed, but didn't think much of it. Then he mentioned joining a weekend adventure club through someone at work. That's great, I said, genuinely pleased. What kind of adventures? Hiking, rock climbing, maybe some kayaking. This guy I work with, Ryan, runs it. They do trips every other weekend. You should definitely go, I encouraged him. This was what I'd been pushing for, wasn't it? Him getting out of his comfort zone. He went to his first meetup on a Saturday morning. He came back sunburned and tired, and more animated than I'd seen him in months, talking about the trail they'd hiked, and how he'd almost fallen crossing a stream, and how everyone was really cool and laid back. I'm glad you had fun, I said. And I was. But there was also something else, something I didn't want to examine too closely. A small voice whispering that I'd wanted him to try harder for me, not for himself. He kept going to the adventure club. Every other weekend, like clockwork. Sometimes I'd go out with friends on those days. Sometimes I'd stay home and enjoy having the apartment to myself. I didn't ask many questions about what they did or who was there. I was just relieved that he'd stopped being clingy, stopped asking me to validate every little thing he did. Then one night, about 4 months ago, we were lying in bed and he said, I think I'm going to go on that Peru trip with the adventure club. I rolled over to look at him. Peru? That's a big jump from weekend hikes. Yeah, well, he said, and there was something in his voice I couldn't quite place. Someone told me I should be more adventurous. He said it lightly, like a joke, but it landed heavy. How long would you be gone? I asked. 10 days. It's a Machu Picchu trek with some other stuff built in. Ryan's organizing the whole thing. There are 8 of us going. 8 people I'd never met. 10 days in another country. This should have been exactly what I wanted. Daniel finally breaking out of his shell, doing something bold and unexpected. But instead, I felt uneasy. That's a long time, I said. You went to Thailand for 3 weeks, he pointed out. That was different. That was before we lived together. So I'm not allowed to go on trips now? I didn't say that. I don't know. Peru seems random. He was quiet for a moment. Then, you've been telling me for months to be more spontaneous, more adventurous. Now I am, and you're upset about it? He was right. I was being completely irrational. So I backed down. You're right. Sorry. I think it's great. You should definitely go. But the uneasy feeling didn't leave. It grew over the next few weeks as he prepared for the trip. He bought hiking boots, a new backpack, got vaccinated for things I couldn't pronounce. He was excited in a way I hadn't seen him excited about anything, including me, in years. The night before he left, we had sex for the first time in 3 weeks. It felt obligatory on both sides, like something we were supposed to do before a long separation. Afterward, lying in the dark, he said, I love you, you know? I love you, too, I said automatically. Do you? Still? The question caught me off guard. Of course. Why would you ask that? I don't know. Sometimes I feel like you're disappointed in me. Like I'm never going to be enough for you. I should have said something reassuring. Should have told him that wasn't true, that I loved him exactly as he was. But I couldn't make the words come out, because they would have been a lie. So I just held him tighter, and hoped that would be enough. He left the next morning at 4 a.m. for his flight. I woke up just enough to kiss him goodbye, then fell back asleep. When I woke up again at 8, the apartment felt empty in a way that should have bothered me more than it did. The first few days he was gone, he texted regularly. Updates about the trek, photos of mountains and ruins, complaints about the altitude. I responded with emojis and brief messages. Looks amazing. So happy for you. Can't wait to hear all about it. Then the messages slowed down. He said the signal was spotty in the mountains, which made sense. I wasn't worried. I was actually enjoying having the place to myself, making plans with friends every night, sleeping diagonally across the bed. On day 7, he sent a photo. It was a group shot of the Adventure Club people on the trek, all of them muddy and exhausted and beaming at the camera. Daniel was in the middle, his arm around another hiker's shoulders. A woman with long dark hair and a bright smile, athletic and tan, and exactly the kind of person who belonged on a mountain. The crew, he'd captioned it. Nothing suspicious, nothing wrong. But I stared at that photo for a long time, at how comfortable he looked with these people, how his smile was genuine and unforced, how his arm rested so naturally around that woman's shoulders. I told myself I was being paranoid, but the feeling wouldn't go away. He came back on a Wednesday afternoon. I'd taken off work to be there when he arrived, which felt like the right girlfriend thing to do. When he walked through the door, he looked different, leaner, more confident, like Peru had burned away some soft layer I hadn't even realized was there. "Hey," he said, dropping his backpack. "Hey, how was it?" I hugged him, and he hugged back, but it felt stiff. Incredible. Seriously, Claire, it was life-changing. I can't even describe it. We sat on the couch, and he showed me more photos, told me stories about near misses on narrow mountain paths and llamas at Machu Picchu, and how amazing the food was. He was more animated than I'd heard him in years. It should have made me happy. The people were amazing too, he continued. Ryan's this great leader, and there's this couple, Mike and Sarah, who've been traveling for like 5 years straight, and Emma, she's the one in the photos with the dark hair. She's done Kilimanjaro and Everest Base Camp, and she's planning this whole Mongolia trip next year. That sounds insane. Emma, the woman with her arm around him in the photo. Sounds like you guys all bonded, I said, trying to sound casual. Yeah, we really did. That's what happens when you spend 10 days in the wilderness together. You can't really hide who you are, you know. Something in the way he said it felt pointed, like a comparison to us, to our safe apartment and routine life, where we could hide who we were indefinitely. Things shifted after Peru. Daniel didn't go back to his old routine. He kept going to the Adventure Club every weekend, sometimes even taking days off work for longer trips. He joined a gym that specialized in outdoor training. He started talking about a potential Iceland trip, a Colorado climbing expedition, maybe even Patagonia. And he stopped trying with me. Not in an obvious way. He was still polite, still friendly, still slept in the same bed and split the bills and asked about my day. But the effort was gone. He stopped suggesting date nights or weekend plans together. When I tried to initiate something, he was always busy with Adventure Club stuff. You could come, he'd offer half-heartedly. But you both knew I wouldn't. These were his people now, doing his things. I'd somehow become the boring one, the one stuck in routine, while he explored the world. Emma's name kept coming up. Emma says this trail in the Catskills is amazing. Emma recommended this documentary about free solo climbing. Emma and I were talking about how most people never push past their comfort zones. You talk to Emma a lot, I said one evening, trying to sound curious rather than accusatory. She's become a good friend, Daniel said simply. She gets it, you know, the adventure mindset. The adventure mindset. Like it was a religion I didn't practice. I started checking his phone. I know. It's terrible. It's a violation of trust. It's what people do when they already know the truth and are just looking for confirmation. But I couldn't help myself. The anxiety was eating me alive. Their texts were frequent but mostly innocent. Plans for hikes, shared articles about adventure travel, memes about mountain life. But there was an easiness to them, an intimacy that came from inside jokes I wasn't part of, and shared experiences I hadn't been there for. One exchange stood out. Emma: "How are things with Claire?" Daniel: "Same as always. She's doing her thing, I'm doing mine." Emma: "That doesn't sound like a ringing endorsement." Daniel: "It's complicated. She wanted me to change, but now that I have, it's like she resents it." Emma: "Or maybe she just wanted you to change for her, not for yourself." Daniel: "Maybe, I don't know. I just know I feel more like myself now than I have in years." Emma: "You deserve someone who appreciates that." I stared at that last line for a long time. You deserve someone who appreciates that. Not, I hope things get better with Claire, or have you tried talking to her? Just a simple statement that he deserved more. More than me. I should have confronted him then. Should have asked him directly if something was going on with Emma. But I was afraid of the answer. And more than that, I was afraid of being the crazy, jealous girlfriend who couldn't handle her boyfriend having female friends. So I did something worse. I started trying to win him back. Suddenly, I was the one suggesting adventure dates, rock climbing gyms, spontaneous road trips, trying new restaurants. He went along with it, but I could tell he saw right through it. This wasn't who I naturally was anymore. I was performing, just like he had performed for me months ago. "We should plan a big trip together," I suggested one night over dinner at a new fusion place I'd found. "Maybe Japan? Or Costa Rica?" "Maybe," he said noncommittally. "I've got the Iceland trip in 6 weeks, and Colorado after that." "I could come to Iceland," I offered. He looked uncomfortable. "The spots are already filled. It's been planned for months." "Right, of course." We ate in silence for a while. Then he said, "Claire, what are we doing?" "What do you mean?" Us. We're just going through the motions, aren't we?" My heart started pounding. "I don't think so. I think we're in a transition period. You're exploring new things, and that's good. And I'm adjusting, and—" "You told me I wasn't adventurous enough," he interrupted. "For months. You basically said I was boring. That I was holding you back. And maybe you were right. But now I've found this whole other side of myself, and you seem upset about it. So what do you actually want?" The same question he'd asked months ago. But this time it felt final. Like my answer would determine everything. What did I want? I wanted him to be adventurous, but only with me. I wanted him to be exciting, but still make me feel safe. I wanted him to change, but also stay exactly the same. I wanted the impossible. "I want us to work," I said quietly. "That's not an answer," he said. "That's just words." He wasn't wrong. But I didn't have anything better to give him. The Iceland trip happened 3 weeks later. Daniel left on a Thursday afternoon, backpack loaded with gear I'd never seen him use before we met. This time, he barely texted. A photo here and there, glaciers, waterfalls, the northern lights, always group shots that included Emma. I spent those 10 days in a spiral of anxiety and wine and social media stalking. Emma's Instagram was public, full of breathtaking adventure photos. She was 29, worked remotely as a graphic designer, had completed marathons on 6 continents. In her bio, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. She posted daily from Iceland, the adventure club group hiking across volcanic landscapes. Someone, Daniel, taking a photo of her standing at the edge of a cliff, arms spread wide. A campfire group shot where she was sitting next to Daniel, their shoulders touching. The caption on that one, "Found my tribe." When Daniel came home, I knew before he said anything. I could see it in his face, in the way he couldn't quite meet my eyes, in how he carefully maintained physical distance as he set down his bag. "We need to talk," he said. "Here's the thing nobody tells you about getting dumped. There's a moment right before it happens where you still have the power to pretend, to deflect, to make a joke, to suggest getting dinner, and talking about it later. where you can delay the inevitable just a little bit longer. I didn't take that moment. I just said, okay. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the same couch where we'd watched hundreds of hours of television together, where we'd had lazy Sunday mornings and fights about whose turn it was to do dishes, and quiet evenings reading side by side. I've been thinking a lot on this trip, he started. About us, about what I want, about who I am. I nodded, not trusting my voice. You were right, he continued. I wasn't adventurous enough. I was stuck in this comfortable little box, too scared to try anything new. And when you kept pushing me to change, I resented it at first. But then I actually did it, and I realized you were right. There's this whole world out there I was missing. That's good, I managed. I'm happy for you. But here's the thing, Claire. I'm not the same person I was a year ago, and I don't think you are either. Or maybe we both are, but we're not the same together. We don't want the same things anymore. There's someone else, he said, cutting me off. The words hung in the air. Even though I'd known, suspected, obsessed over the possibility for weeks, hearing it out loud was different. It made it real. Emma, I said. Not a question. He nodded. Nothing physical happened. I need you to know that. I didn't cheat on you. But on this trip, we spent a lot of time talking, and I realized she gets me, the person I'm becoming, and I think I might have feelings for her. Might? I repeated bitterly. How generous of you to only might have feelings for her while you're breaking up with me. That's not fair. None of this is fair. My voice cracked. I pushed you to be more adventurous so we could have more fun together, so our relationship could be better. Not so you could go find someone else. Did you, though? He asked quietly. Did you really want me to change? For us? Or did you just want me to change because you were bored and looking for an excuse to be unhappy? The question hit like a slap. That's not true. Isn't it? Claire, you've been pulling away for months. Maybe longer. You go out without me. You make plans that don't include me. You look annoyed every time I'm just being myself. You didn't want me to be more adventurous. You wanted me to be different. To be someone you could respect enough to stay with. Tears were running down my face now. I love you. I know, he said, and he sounded sad. I love you too, but I don't think we're in love anymore. I think we're just comfortable. Or we were, until we weren't. He moved out that weekend. It was remarkably civilized. We divided things fairly. Didn't fight over the stupid stuff, like who got the nice blender, or the prints we bought together. His parents helped him move into a temporary place. He said he'd cover his half of the rent until the lease was up in 2 months, which felt generous until I realized it was probably guilt money. Everyone was supportive. My friends rallied around me with wine and rage and declarations that he was an asshole. My sister let me cry on her couch for 3 hours straight. My mom said comforting things about how there were plenty of fish in the sea, and I was still young, and maybe it was for the best. And I let them comfort me. I played the part of the heartbroken girlfriend whose boyfriend changed and left her for another woman. It was a good story, clean and simple. I was the victim. He was the villain. Emma was the other woman. Everyone could understand that narrative, but I knew the truth. And here's the part I've never admitted to anyone, the part that makes me look the worst. I was relieved. Not immediately. The first few weeks, I was genuinely devastated, crying at random times and stalking his social media and replaying every moment of our relationship, looking for where it went wrong. But underneath the grief was something else, something lighter. I didn't have to pretend anymore. Didn't have to try to make it work with someone I'd stopped being excited about years ago. Didn't have to feel guilty about being bored or restless or wanting more. He'd ended it, which meant I got to be the victim instead of the villain. I got the sympathy without the blame, but I couldn't leave it alone. That's what I should have done. Mourned the relationship, learned my lessons, moved on. Instead, I started watching them. Not physically stalking. I'm not that far gone. But social media stalking, absolutely. Emma's Instagram became my obsession. She and Daniel didn't post photos together at first, probably trying to be respectful of the timeline or whatever. But I could tell. Comments on each other's posts, tagged locations that matched up, inside jokes in the replies. Then, about 6 weeks after the breakup, Daniel posted a photo from a Colorado climbing trip. He was at the top of some peak, exhausted and happy, and the caption was, "Couldn't have made it without my adventure partner, Emma Adventures." She'd commented, "You're stronger than you think. Proud of you." Blue hearts, not red, because that would be too obvious, but blue hearts between my ex-boyfriend and the woman he left me for. I started drinking. Not a lot, not enough for anyone to worry, but more than I should. Glasses of wine alone in the apartment that still had both our names on the lease, scrolling through photos of their adventures together. They went to Yosemite, to the Grand Canyon, on a weekend kayaking trip. They joined a wilderness first aid course together. Every experience I'd pushed him to have, he was having with her. My friends told me to stop looking. "You're just torturing yourself," they said. "Block them and move on." But I couldn't. I needed to see it, needed to understand what she had that I didn't. And the answer was obvious. She actually wanted the same things he wanted. She wasn't pushing him to change. She liked him as he was, the adventurous version of him that I demanded he become. She genuinely appreciated that person. While I'd wanted him to be exciting, but still prioritize me, she wanted to be excited with him. 3 months after the breakup, they made it official. A photo of them at sunrise on some mountain I didn't recognize. Her leaning back against him, both of them looking at the view. The caption, "Sometimes the best adventures are the ones you didn't plan." Red heart this time. No more pretending. My sister found me crying in my apartment that night, surrounded by empty wine bottles and used tissues. "He's officially with her," I sobbed. "They're together. "I know, sweetie, I saw." She sat down next to me. "But you have to stop doing this to yourself. It's been 3 months. You need to start moving on." I pushed him to this, I said. If I'd just been happy with who he was, if I hadn't kept criticizing him, we'd still be together. "Or you'd still be miserable and resentful," she countered. "Claire, you weren't happy. You said so yourself. The relationship was dying before he even met Emma. But everyone thinks he's the bad guy, that he left me for another woman. They don't know that I basically drove him to it. You didn't drive him to anything. You expressed what you needed, and it turned out you guys weren't compatible. That's not your fault." But it felt like my fault. Because here's what I haven't told you yet, what I've never told anyone. I didn't just criticize Daniel for not being adventurous enough. I weaponized it. Every time he disappointed me in some small way, forgot to take out the trash, worked late, didn't want to go out when I did, I'd bring it up. "This is what I'm talking about. You're so set in your ways, so predictable, so boring." I used his personality as a weapon, turned who he was into a character flaw. And the worst part? I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew I was tearing him down. Part of me wanted him to feel bad about himself, because if he felt bad enough, maybe he'd break up with me and I wouldn't have to be the one to end it. Or maybe he'd change into someone I could actually be excited about. I never wanted to be with Daniel. Not really. Not the real Daniel, who liked routine and comfort and the same beach vacation every year. I wanted to be with the version of him I'd created in my head, the exciting one, who was also completely devoted to me. When he started actually becoming adventurous, I resented it, because he was doing it for himself, not for me. He was becoming the person I'd demanded he be, but he wasn't grateful enough about it, wasn't crediting me enough, wasn't still centering me in his transformation. And when Emma showed up, someone who actually liked the new version of him, I lost my mind. Because the whole point was that he was supposed to change for me, be better for me, and still choose me. not actually find someone better suited to who he was becoming. So when my sister said it wasn't my fault, she was wrong. It was absolutely my fault, not because I pushed him to be adventurous, but because I pushed him to be something other than himself, while simultaneously expecting him to stay and be grateful for it. I'm the villain in this story. Not him, not Emma, me. 4 months after the breakup, I matched with someone on a dating app. His name was Jordan, and his profile was full of hiking photos and travel shots and quotes about wanderlust. He seemed perfect, exactly the kind of adventurous person I'd always wanted. We went on 3 dates. He talked constantly about his trips, his adventures, his plans to live in a van and travel the country. And I was bored out of my mind. Because here's what I finally realized. I don't actually want adventure that much. I want the idea of adventure. I want to be the kind of person who's spontaneous and exciting. But I don't actually want to sleep in tents and wake up at 4 a.m. to catch sunrises and eat freeze-dried food on mountaintops. I want routine. I want comfort. I want the same coffee shop and the same restaurant order and lazy Sundays on the couch. I'm my own kind of boring. Just in a different way than Daniel was. But I'd convinced myself that his kind of boring was wrong and mine was right. That predictability was a flaw in him, but just being grounded in me. That I needed someone adventurous to push me out of my comfort zone, when really, I just needed someone to blame for my own restlessness. I didn't go on a 4th date with Jordan. I deleted the dating apps and decided to be single for a while. Actually single. Not just waiting for the next relationship single. It's been 6 months now since Daniel left. He and Emma are still together. They went to New Zealand last month. I know because I still check sometimes, even though I shouldn't. They look happy. Really happy, in that casual way that people who actually fit together look happy. I still live in the same apartment. The lease is month to month now. And I should probably find somewhere cheaper. Somewhere that doesn't have memories of him in every corner. But I haven't. Maybe that's my form of self-punishment. Living in the ghost of a relationship I sabotaged. My friends have stopped talking about Daniel. My family stopped asking if I'm dating anyone. I've gone back to my old routines. The same coffee shop, the same weekend plans, the same boring life I had before, but without the relationship to blame my dissatisfaction on. And here's the thing I keep coming back to. Was I wrong for wanting him to be more adventurous? Everyone says I had the right to want what I wanted, that compatibility matters, that it's okay if we wanted different things. But I didn't just want different things. I wanted him to be different. I wanted to change a fundamental part of who he was and then got upset when the change didn't happen on my terms. So yes, I told him he wasn't adventurous enough. And yes, now he's adventurous with another woman. But that's not the real story. The real story is that I used his perceived flaws as a weapon to avoid dealing with my own unhappiness. I pushed him to change because I couldn't accept that the relationship simply wasn't working, and I needed it to be his fault. And when he actually changed, when he actually became the person I claimed I wanted him to be, I resented him for it. Because it proved that the problem was never really about adventure. It was about me not wanting to be the bad guy in my own story. I see them sometimes, in my mind. Daniel and Emma hiking some impossible trail, camping under stars, living the life I told him he should want. And I wonder if he ever thinks about me. If he ever tells her about the girlfriend who criticized him into becoming someone new. If she knows that she's benefiting from the person I pushed him to be. But probably not. Probably I'm just a cautionary tale he tells at campfires. The girlfriend who wanted him to change, but couldn't handle it when he did. The one who pushed him toward the edge and then got upset when he jumped. I'm not looking for sympathy. I know how this sounds. I know what I did. I destroyed a decent relationship with a good person because I was too cowardly to just admit we weren't right for each other. I blamed him for being boring instead of admitting I was bored. I demanded he change instead of changing myself. And now I'm alone in an apartment with ghosts, stalking my ex's girlfriend's Instagram, drinking wine and pretending I'm fine to everyone who asks. Because that's what you do when you're the villain. You smile and say you're over it, and you've learned so much, and everything happens for a reason. But late at night, when I can't sleep, and I'm scrolling through photos of mountains I'll never climb, I think about what I could have done differently. I could have been honest earlier. Could have ended things before I destroyed his self-esteem. Could have let him be who he was, instead of trying to mold him into someone else. Or maybe, if I'm being really honest, I could have looked at my own life and figured out why I was so unhappy, instead of making it his responsibility to fix. Last week, I saw them at a coffee shop downtown. I'd stopped going to my usual place to avoid exactly this scenario. But I'd made an exception because I was needing a friend nearby. And there they were, Daniel and Emma, sitting at a table by the window, laughing over lattes, and what looked like maps spread between them, planning their next adventure. Probably. I ducked behind a pillar before they could see me, heart pounding, feeling like a teenager hiding from an ex at a mall. I watched them for a minute, the easy way they talked to each other, how he touched her hand across the table, how she smiled at him with this look of complete acceptance. He looked happy, genuinely, fully happy, in a way I don't think he ever looked with me. Even in our good times, our early days, there was always this sense that he was trying to measure up to something. With her, he just looked free. I left before they could see me, went home, and didn't tell my friend why I needed to reschedule. Instead, I sat in my apartment and finally let myself cry properly. Not for losing him, exactly, but for who I'd been. For the person who thought that criticizing someone into change was the same as love. For the woman who couldn't figure out what she wanted, so she made everyone around her miserable trying. So that's my confession. I told my boyfriend he wasn't adventurous enough, and now he's adventurous with another woman. But the real story is uglier than that. I emotionally manipulated someone I claimed to love, used his insecurities as weapons, and then played the victim when he finally found someone who actually appreciated him. I don't know what I'm looking for by telling this story. Absolution, maybe? Though I don't deserve it. Understanding, though I'm not sure I've earned it. Maybe I just need to say it out loud, to stop carrying around this secret knowledge that I'm not the person everyone thinks I am. Everyone sees me as the woman whose boyfriend changed and left. But I'm actually the woman who couldn't stand her own life, so she tried to make someone else responsible for fixing it. And when they couldn't, when they finally chose themselves over me, I got to be the victim instead of the villain. The worst part? Sometimes I still catch myself doing it, criticizing someone for not being what I want, instead of asking if I even know what I want, looking at other people's lives and relationships and adventures, and feeling that familiar restlessness, that sense that everyone else has figured out some secret to happiness that I'm missing. But maybe there is no secret. Maybe happiness is just accepting who you are and finding someone who accepts it too. like Daniel finally did. Like I'm still trying to learn how to do. I saw yesterday that they got engaged. Emma posted a photo from some mountaintop in Colorado. Her hand extended to show the ring. Daniel in the background looking more proud and happy than I've ever seen him. The caption was simple. He said yes. Of course she proposed. Of course she's that kind of woman. The kind who does unexpected things and makes them seem natural. The kind of woman who probably never told him he wasn't enough, because she actually believed he was. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I did something I should have done months ago. I blocked them both. Not out of anger or jealousy, though those feelings are still there, but because I need to stop watching the life I pushed him toward, living it with someone else. I need to figure out my own life, who I actually am, what I actually want, not who I think I should be, or what looks good on Instagram, or what makes for a better story. Maybe someday I'll meet someone who likes routine as much as I secretly do. Someone who wants the same coffee shop and the same beach vacation and lazy Sundays doing nothing. Someone I don't feel the need to change